Today on Locked On Rockies, a losing streak, if losing streaks in spring training actually count as anything, has been snapped, and it's due to some loud offense.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 13th day of March in the year 2025. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And you can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, as well as the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. That's what we do around here. Talking Rockies baseball with you, the Rockies fans here, free and streaming, and on that Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. So make sure that you're tuning in, joining us, and hanging out with us all here as we are getting one day closer to opening day here for the Colorado Rockies, right around the corner. Exciting stuff. How excited are you? Are you excited for opening day? Are you getting excited for Colorado Rockies baseball here in 2025? It's going to kind of relate to some comments down later in the show that we're going to talk about. But on the show today, let's talk about the big offensive day for the Rockies yesterday and just how loud that was. I mean, it wasn't loud and necessarily the put the rest of the league on notice. It was really great hard hit contact from a lot of pieces in the lineup, with the exception of the 4-hole hitter. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well coming up on today's episode. But an interesting comment from the YouTube comment section that will be a factor here. You don't see it on the rundown here. But should we trade Ezequiel Tovar instead of Germán Márquez? Let's talk about that later on in the show. Yesterday, big day, nice day for the Rockies offense. Really looked good. They put the thump on the Padres. Now, the Padres had some major league pitchers. You look at the roster that they put up there compared to the Rockies roster, which again might be another example of the opening day roster. I do firmly believe that yesterday could be an example of that. When you're looking at who got the start there, Brenton Doyle, Zach Veen, Ezequiel Tovar, Ryan McMahon, Chris Bryant, Estrada, Tolia, Goodman, Jones, and then Sean Bouchard. That was it. So that list there kind of could be. Again, I think with our conversation yesterday, with everything, I'm still worried that we're going to see a different type of mix in the outfield. But I think yesterday was the type of day that reminded folks about, or at least the people in the org, about what Nolan Jones can do and the possibilities too, as this one position battle was decided earlier this week. I don't think we talked about it yesterday. I can't remember if the news came down yesterday after the show or earlier in the week, but Hunter Goodman is going to be the backup catcher for Jacob Stallings to start the season. Drew Romo assigned back down to AAA, and that's okay. By the way, that's perfectly fine. Let Romo get a little more work. That's a guy where it's like him being up as much as he was last year. Him being where he's at is I think in an advanced stage there, and I'm not worried about the fact that the Rockies made a move that was like pretty obvious in what they were going to do, and now Goodman's going to be able to have a chance to play a lot more catcher. We know how much he likes that. So yesterday, right? The why there was the talk about worrying about Nolan Jones, worrying about what's going to happen with him. That was the type of game that reconfigures your hope, right? I mean, if you're just basing it off of your sample sizes of spring training on what on how you feel about where Nolan Jones is at right now, that's the type of game we needed to see from him there. Not only going 3 for 3. What was it actually? 4 for 4. I apologize. 4 for 4 on the game yesterday with 3 RBI. They were all hit very hard. They were good, solid contact. They were able to get out there, be not just they weren't just seeing eye singles or anything like that. They were a bunch of offense that it was a bunch of offense. It was a bunch of hits, 4 of them that looked like the Nolan Jones from the rookie year. Again, it's got to be recreated and things, but when you're looking, if the trend is if this is going to continue for Jones over the course of the rest of the spring training period, you're going to feel a heck of a lot more confident with him building up and getting to a point where he is ready to rock and do some damage. I mean, and be someone that's going to contribute here over there, and mixing it in with the fact that we were talking Hunter Goodman, pick up a couple of hits there. But on the other side of the coin, because again, as Nolan Jones is trying to cement his spot in that left field spot, Sean Bouchard comes out and just has a monster game, including a monster home run there, going 3 for 4, driving in 3 runs there. The only person to hit a home run for the Rockies in yesterday's game, which was kind of surprising when you look at the score. That is such a good sign as well. I mean, the jury is still out on what Bouchard and Beck can do. But just like when we were talking about yesterday, when we were talking about why not see what we can do if we stick with these guys? What's the difference? What's the problem if we don't do, if why not, basically? Why lean on a veteran player, an average veteran player? Why not at least hand the keys over and see what happened, kind of similar to shortstop? And I think games like this, in moments like this, it's going to get harder and harder and harder for the Rockies to make any sort of justification about playing a veteran guy over these young guys who are having strong springs. Right now, Sean Bouchard this spring is in 29 at-bats, is batting .379 with an OBP of .379 and an OPS of 1.138, 6 RBI, 2 home run. I mean, that's pretty darn good when it comes to a spring training and this just being a situation in which you're just, getting a couple of licks in here every now and then. This is easily his best spring training as well, and the most, especially when you consider that injury history there. In 10 games of 2023, he batted .286, .375, .333, .708. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is this is improvement here. This is Bouchard not regressing after the injury, not performing at a similar level that he did in 21 games in spring training last year, where he only batted .205, .308, .341, 16 strikeouts in that time. So the strikeouts still kind of on that pace compared to last year. If you were to add 10 more games onto this, there's a good chance his 8 strikeouts are pretty close to that 16. But these are the type of games that the Rockies' young outfielders need to keep having so they can continue to put the pressure on. Would you be more excited to see Bouchard or Martini out there, Hilliard out there? You need a veteran backup outfielder or someone else is not a horrible idea, like the Hilliard for center field, to give Brenton Doyle, some rest here and there, because we know Brenton Doyle is going to need some rest periods and days off. It's center field and the amount of putouts and the amount of work that he gets. So that will be a factor. But just as we're sitting here talking about, hey, Bouchard needs this, Zach Veen in his 1 at bat yesterday gets a bases clearing triple for 3 RBI yesterday. So I'm bringing all of this up again because it completely mirrors what we said yesterday. It is time to just embrace and see what you have with these young guys. And someone in the comments was bringing up a tough day for Veen's defense and things like that. Listen, and I know this might sound crazy. Right now, and kind of in the grand scheme of things, right field defense is not something I'm all that worried about. And no matter what, if you have the reservations about Veen's defense right now in right field, what option defensively is an upgrade for the Rockies? Chris Bryant, Martini, It's same with these other guys. Is that going to be the difference maker for Bouchard and Beck? Why they're going to make the team or get the start over Veen is the defense. That's certainly reasonable. But is there anyone defensively in right field that's knocking your socks off? I mean, we had Charlie Blackmon play in right field for years. I mean, and well after he was his prime as a defender. We all know that Charlie had the hose and could, make an impact there. But for me right now, the defensive part of the battle for right field isn't nearly as important as the offense. It's not a position where I think the Rockies are going to suffer greatly. I mean, it's going to ricochet off the scoreboard wall and whatever. It's going to be, I mean, if you can play average defense in right field or be fine enough, that will be good for me. Offense. It cannot be understated this year of that. The Rockies need to be able to score like they did yesterday, hit the ball as hard as they did yesterday, be aggressive and be dominant as they were. And this was in the game, the Rockies picking up, what is that? 1, 2, 4 walks yesterday, which is always nice, but the thing to keep reminding ourselves about, keep looking at. And the good news is it was under double digits this time, but 8 strikeouts for the Rockies yesterday as well. So that's the offensive for me, for the evaluation of who gets the start in right field, who can play average defense and not be a liability out there, and who will be the best contributor to the offense. And right now, Beck, Bouchard, and Veen are putting up their cases to say it's got to be us, and that should be enough pressure that's the case. And what is a bummer though about all these guys and just trying to wave the magic wand and saying put them all up on the team or get them all there, impacts playing time, impacts at bats that you get during the season, because spring training, you kind of you throw your hands up and you kind of know. Once the regular season starts, no at bat is going to be guaranteed for anybody on that in right field. So every moment is going to matter there for these guys to develop. But it's just, do they need to is sticking them in minor league baseball really going to be the thing that they need to take their game to the next level? While we're starting the season off with a veteran or a backup player in right field, or Chris Bryant in right field. Speaking of Chris Bryant, he can't bat fourth. He can't bat cleanup, and I'm going to tell you why coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When you start using Monarch, you'll realize just how much you are spending on food delivery, other services, but it will help you budget and save more. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. And you'll love that easy communication. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Yes, 50% off your first year when you head to monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. So Rockies offense was alive yesterday, which was fun, which was always a good time. But there was a little thing that stuck out to me, and this kind of relates to, I believe, Cassidy Dean posted about the worries about KB, and KB coming up in situations in which do some damage and not getting it done. And this isn't just to throw it under there, but Chris Bryant comes up, bases loaded, and it's a weak fly ball to the back part of the infield. And then another situation, I believe in his second or third at bat, he came up with some runners in scoring position, similar result. The Rockies already are facing a power outage. And by forcing the Chris Bryant off a situation into the middle of the lineup, the 3, the 4 hole, that is not going to be the way to get the most out of him. I think Chris Bryant needs to drop into the 5. I think, maybe if you're confident in his ability to get on base consistently, you do something like the 2 spot. But we cannot look to Chris Bryant to be the big power generating, big RBI, big 4-hole threat. He is not the cleanup hitter until he is back in the groove, fully healthy, ready to rock, swinging a good bat. I really don't think we should be putting Chris Bryant in the position to be the primary RBI generator. I think that there needs to be the Rockies, again, this is another situation in which if there are young guys that are hitting the ball well, let's put them in those situations because yes, is it going to be crazy to see Bouchard in the 4 hole? Is it going or modify and drop some people down, Jones, McMahon into that spot? Because even with my hesitations about McMahon being the big RBI, the big power bat threat that we've talked about before, I think Chris Bryant kind of fits into the inconsistencies of Chris Bryant kind of mirror the inconsistencies of Ryan McMahon in some ways, not always, but in some similar ways. But there's been too many moments that we've seen with Chris Bryant coming up in crucial situations in the past as well. I just don't think, again, this is the position that's going to be the best for him. Now, if you asked him, and I'm sure if you asked the Rockies, it's a completely different story. They are going to say, this is Chris Bryant we're talking about here. This is our guy. We know what we got. I know who I am. I'm healthier. I'm hitting the weight room, all that stuff. It's crazy that Chris Bryant isn't the big offensive anchor for the Colorado Rockies in the middle of the lineup. But I just am not seeing it. And again, when I'm watching guys hit the ball hard, hit the cover off the ball throughout the rest of the game yesterday, and Chris Bryant's hitting, not generating that good contact, hitting those weak fly balls, I'm like, why not? What do we? I mean, again, it's got to be consistency from Nolan Jones, right? But would we be say Nolan Jones is starting to recreate what his his rookie season is, and things are starting to go? Why would we not want Nolan Jones in the 4 hole? Put him somewhere else, a little more stolen base threat or something like that. I don't know. But the limited power that the Rockies already have, it can't be further limited by a Chris Bryant still trying to find his power swing. When we have seen Chris Bryant on the field for the Rockies, one thing that we've noticed and one thing that has been talked about before is the dip in power. So if he's going to be more of a contact guy, he's going to be someone more that isn't going to be driving the ball for extra bases. I don't think that we can continue to solidify him as someone right smack dab in the middle of the order to drive in the runs. Let's see how did he end up finishing yesterday? I know I saw that there was. Let's see here. Chris Bryant 0 for 4 yesterday. And Chris Bryant here so far this spring is batting 143, an OBP of 250, a slugging of 333, and an OPS of 583. His 1 home run is the hardest home run he's hit in years, and there is that. But again, I'm asking for it to be recreated. But the other thing, I guess, maybe it's hard to come to this conclusion with only 8 games this spring, 24 plate appearances. But I think when you see the frustrations of those at bats in the game yesterday, those are kind of similar frustrations to what we get to what we've seen with Chris Bryant in the regular season. I think that he needs to take a different role in their offense as well. Still be an offensive threat, add depth later on, but I just don't know if sitting here and saying Chris Bryant 4 hole is the for sure de facto move. I just don't know if I'm buying that. All right. Let's see here. Want to answer this question before we get to the other comments here. This is from Jonesy Gaming. Curious on your thoughts. You talked about possibly trading Marquez. I'm a firm believer the Rockies can't afford to trade pitchers. We should trade position players for pitchers because it's much harder to get pitchers in free agency than position players, considering we play half our games at Coors Field. I'd rather trade Tovar than Marquez. And I mean, that's the part I disagree with you on. While I'm with you that you need to acquire pitching and it's always something at the top of the mind, you can move on from pitching, especially when you're hopeful for the pitchers coming up within the Rockies organization. You are hopeful that you'll be able to do this. Germán Márquez is an interesting case here. We are going to be entering the we're in the post injury now, the post significant injury, and getting to be not old, but starting to enter, I think, what most people would start looking as a second half of a career. I don't think trading Germán is like the immediate like slam dunk thing to do. I mean, it might just be the situation where you get to the trade deadline, you got an expiring contract on a guy. Germán's kind of thinking, "Hey, I love this team, I love this, but let's be real here. We're pretty far off." If you don't trade Germán Márquez and you don't re-sign him, it's another situation in which the Rockies let a valuable piece walk from the organization without getting anything back. But to go with what you're saying about trading Tovar, there's just no way. You don't trade the guy that led the NL in doubles last year, winning a Gold Glove, and led the Rockies in home runs last year, while being above and beyond exceeding the expectations of what we all originally thought when he first started taking over, and on the precipice of what could be a massive breakout season on the national stage. I just don't, when you're talking about reasons to be excited about the Colorado Rockies, when you're talking about the next generation's favorite Rockies player, Ezequiel Tovar has a very, very high chance of being that player. And it's not just smoke. I mean, we have seen now over the 2 seasons, we have seen that not only is this guy a Major League Baseball player, he is a Major League Baseball player that can compete at the high levels and compete with the best in the business. I still believe that there is a path for Ezequiel Tovar to be one of the best shortstops in baseball this year. And I am not afraid to say that. I see what you're saying about position players, but I think you have to I think it has to be somewhere of the evaluation and the understanding of like a Ryan McMahon. Again, you like what you've seen, but it's a position player that has a ceiling that he's hit a couple of times, but we've never fully seen. Pitching, I think it's always going to be difficult, right? And of course, good pitching, and we know how important that is. But I do think, and this is just a guess, this is just, again, a homer take here. I think the Rockies being a more offensive-focused team with a pitching staff that maybe doesn't dominate but is good enough, I think that's why the Rockies were successful in the playoffs. I think because the offense, they were so good at home, they had enough offensive threats, they were able to score runs, they could win the shootouts, the boat races, whatever you want to call them in baseball. The offense is more important than the pitching. I as much as it's crazy to say, and so many people, and it's always the talk of, it's the Rockies, they always need pitching, which they do, which is a very fair thing. But I kind of just think overall, the best version of the Rockies has a very, very, very strong offense and a good pitching staff. I think the offense mixed with great defense, which we have seen the Rockies play, those are the two bigger parts. That's why the Rockies have put a lot of focus into that, right? It's why I believe that. And you can't just ignore the pitching. But if you trade Germán, get a haul, and then Dollander is up next year, or Dollander is up in the second half of the season, or another young guy. I know it's not great on the example size, but I'm just kind of just pointing this out. Like, if you can get a haul for Germán goes to pitch for a competitor. Germán, through this first part of this first half of the season, is going to be able to establish himself in Rockies record books. He's going to firmly plant himself as one of, if not the greatest Rockies pitcher of all time. And then either the Rockies will face a choice where you can go, they can certainly re-sign him and bring him back. We were talking about the back half of the career. This guy is only 30, so there's still plenty of baseball left in an already near decades long career. Going to be 10 years in the bigs this year, this season. So Tovar has a lot more time, a lot more youth than Germán. And like I said, I'm just a firm believer that the offense is going to be the big saving grace for the Rockies when they get back to competitive baseball with a good pitching staff. You can't slack, but I think the secret will be the pitching staff, or not the. I'm sorry, that completely. What a bad dismount there. The offense. I would not trade Ezequiel Tovar over Germán Márquez. I wouldn't trade Ezequiel Tovar at all. It'd have to be a haul, have to be something big. Again, I'm not saying Ezequiel Tovar is going to be the best player in all of baseball, MVP type of thing, but I mean, I ain't going to rule it out ever either. I mean, I think Tovar is a special ball player. All right, we got to take a break, and then we're going to read more comments here to finish up the show. Let's wrap it up right here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes wonderful pistachios. You might be listening to this right now, and you say, gosh darn it, I need a snack, and I need something easy, and I need something tasty and loaded with protein. Well, guess what? That's what Wonderful Pistachios brings to the table, because Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Maybe you're worried about making a mess at your desk. You don't want to leave shells everywhere. I know you're baseball fans. We got no problem cracking open them shells and all that stuff. Well, they got you covered with the no-shell variety for an easy, quick snack on the go. And you can enjoy Wonderful Pistachios on the go between meetings, dropping off the kids, no matter what. Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com. That's wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Thanking you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB with our guy Sully here on Locked On Rockies. Well, the Locked On Podcast Network. Sully has been on Locked On Rockies, though, filled in a couple of times, and we've done plenty of crossovers here. All right, let's see here. Let's watch or read some comments here. And this is what TK posted 2 comments. He was watching before the game. He was watching yesterday's episode, or watching yesterday's episode twice, it looked like. It said, rough game in the field for Veen, but his bat needs to be a course. The fact that De La Cruz stole home from second is a glaring sign of no fundamentals on this team. I still won't wave the white flag on the season yet. And then the game happened, and TK says the kids came out swinging today. Darn right they did, TK. Yeah, I believe in the defense. I do think that that's been a strength for the Rockies and something that will help them for sure. Jack says, before the watch, I think Veen has, but let's be real, meaning has done enough to make the roster, because that was the question of the episode title yesterday. But let's be real, Martini is going to play an ungodly amount. My gut is telling me the same type of thing there, Jack. I'm worried about it as well. Arlek says the Rockies have by far the worst, most defeatist fan base in all of baseball. This was in response to earlier episode of the week, is there hope for the Colorado Rockies? And Jim follows up with, can you blame them? And Arlek says, well, in the last 20 years, there's been a World Series appearance to go along with 4 playoff appearances, 2 of which were back-to-back. They act like the last 20 years have all been 100-plus lost seasons of the worst MLB team of all time. Well, I mean, very fair points, and I think the stuff about the World Series is important to remember for Rockies fans. But I do ask you, Arlek, how would you feel in terms of hope for a team and a direction of a team, and if they responded to those back-to-back playoff appearances with trading a franchise player, not making other trades to beef up the roster, which has now led to the 2 worst seasons in Rockies history, and being considered the worst team in baseball going into this season, and have been considered the worst team in baseball other years as well. While there's certainly plenty of things to be encouraged by and excited by, and there have been plenty of successful things in Colorado, as opposed to other franchises as well. Remember, there are teams that have not been to the World Series. The Rockies have that benefit. But I think when we're talking about the concept of hope, when we're talking about passion, idea, energy for this team, when the response to making the playoffs, first time ever in franchise history that you have won back-to-back, or have gone to the playoffs in back-to-back times without winning the division, by the way, no division titles. When the response and when the follow-up to those seasons has been what the Rockies have done and gotten us to this point, mixed with how the last two seasons have gone, I can't blame them, but I do think that sometimes there needs to be a little more confidence from the Rockies fan, a little bit more hope, and that includes myself as well. I am not innocent of that by any means, but when we're talking about why the Rockies are so hopeless on the Athletics hope-o-meter this year, it is the response. It is this point where the Rockies have squandered opportunity after opportunity and not done enough to build up the faith and the confidence of the Rockies fans. Timothy says, I think it should be Bouchard and Veen in the outfield. I like the idea of someone who has been here and some fresh young blood in the mix. We need to see this team without older veterans clogging an already deep position in the minors. Yeah, it's just such a logjam at outfield. There's so many things the Rockies are going to have to figure out. And well, the evaluation period will continue here as we're going to be entering the final full week of spring training next week. And the decisions are going to have to start being made for the Rockies there. And we'll see how it all shakes out. Locked On Rockies, we are back in action tomorrow. Join us again right here on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. And again, thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB with our guy Sully. Or if you're getting ready for fantasy baseball, Locked On Fantasy Baseball's got you covered, breaking down lineups, breaking down players, who are the sleepers that you need to get in your draft. They got you covered there. Locked On Fantasy Baseball. And for the Colorado sports coverage, we got you covered here. Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, Locked On Buffs, all to go along with Locked On Rockies. Folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.